Darkly Dreaming Dexter Chapter 18, read by Michael C. Hall AI. Please like and subscribe. For a few moments, I just sat and thought about life's cruel ironies. After so many years of solitary self-reliance, I was suddenly pursued from all directions by hungry women. Deb, Rita, Lagertathy were all apparently unable to exist without me. Yet the one person I wanted to spend some quality time with was being coy, leaving Barbie dolls in my freezer. Was any of this fair? I put my hand in my pocket and felt the small glass slide, snug and secure in its ziplock. For a moment it made me feel a little better. At least I was doing something, and life's only obligation, after all, was to be interesting, which it certainly was at the moment. Interesting did not begin to describe it. I would trade a year off my life to find out more about this elusive willow, the wisp who was teasing me so mercilessly with such elegant work. In fact, I had come far too close to trading more than a year with my little Jaworski interlude. Yes, things were certainly interesting. And were they really saying in the department that I had a feeling for serial homicide? That was very troubling. It meant my careful disguise might be close to unraveling. I had been too good too many times. It could become a problem. But what could I do? Be stupid for a while? I wasn't sure I knew how, even after so many years of careful observation. Well, I opened the case file on Jaworski, the poor man. After an hour of study, I came to a couple of conclusions. First and most important, I was going to get away with it, in spite of the unforgivable sloppy impulsiveness of the thing. And second, there might be a way for Deb to cash in on this. If she could prove this was the work of our original artist while Lagerta committed herself to the copycat theory, Deb could suddenly turn from somebody they didn't trust to get their coffee in flavor of the month. Of course, it was not actually the work of the same guy, but that seemed like a very picky objection at this point. And since I knew without any possibility of doubt that there were going to be more bodies found very soon, it wasn't worth worrying about. And naturally, at the same time, I had to provide the annoying detective Lagerta with enough rope to hang herself, which might also, it occurred to me, come in handy on a more personal level. Pushed into a corner and made to look like an idiot, Lagerta would naturally try to pin the blame on the nitwit lab tech who had given her the erroneous conclusion, dull dim Dexter. And my reputation would suffer a much-needed relapse into mediocrity. Of course, it would not jeopardize my job, since I was supposed to analyze blood spatter, not provide profiling services. That being the case, it would help to make Lagerta to look like the nitwit she was, and raise Deborah's stock even more. Lovely when things work out so neatly. I called Deborah at 1:30 the next day. I met Deb at a small restaurant a few blocks north of the airport. It was tucked into a little strip mall, between an auto parts store and a gun shop. It was a place we both knew well, not too far from Miami-Dade headquarters, and they made the best Cuban sandwiches in the world right there. Perhaps that seems like a small thing, but I assure you there are times when only a medianoche will do. And at such times, Caf Relampago was the only place to get one. The Morgans had been going there since 1974, and I did feel that some small light touch was in order, if not an actual celebration, then at least an acknowledgement that things were looking up ever so slightly. Perhaps I was merely feeling chipper because I had let off a little steam with my dear friend Jaworski, but in any case, I did feel unaccountably good. I even ordered a batito de mam, a uniquely flavored Cuban milkshake that tastes something like a combination of watermelon, peach, and mango. Deb, of course, was unable to share my irrational mood. She looked like she had been studying the facial expressions of large fish, dire and droopy in the extreme. "Please, Deborah," I begged her, "if you don't stop, your face will be stuck like that. People will take you for a grouper." "They're sure not going to take me for a cop," she said, "because I won't be one anymore." "Nonsense," I said. "Didn't I promise?" "Yeah, you also promised that this was going to work. But you didn't say anything about the looks I'd get from Captain Matthews." "Oh, Deb," I said, "he looked at you. I'm so sorry. Fuck you, Dexter. You weren't there, and it's not your life going down the tubes." "I told you it was going to be rough for a while, Debs." "Well, at least you were right about that. According to Matthews, I am this close to being suspended. But he did give you permission to use your free time to look into this a little more," she snorted. "He said, 'I can't stop you, Morgan.' But I am very disappointed, and I wonder what your father would have said." "And did you say, my father never would have closed the case with the wrong guy in jail?" She looked surprised. "No," she said, "but I was thinking it." "How did you know? But you didn't actually say it, did you, Deborah?" "No," she said. I pushed her glass toward her. "Have some, ma'am, sis. Things are looking up." She looked at me. "You sure you're not just yanking my chain?" "Never, Deb. How could I? With the greatest of ease, really, sis. You need to trust me." She held my eye for a moment and then looked down. She still hadn't touched her shake, which was a shame. "They were very good. I trust you, but I swear to God I don't know why." She looked up at me, a strange expression flitting back and forth across her face. "And sometimes I really don't think I should, Dexter." I gave her my very best reassuring big, brother smile. "Within the next 2 or 3 days, something new will turn up. I promise." "You can't know that," she said. "I know I can't, Deb, but I do know, I really do. So why do you sound so happy about it?" I wanted to say it was because the idea made me happy. Because the thought of seeing more of the bloodless wonder made me happier than anything else I could think of. But of course, that was not a sentiment Deb could really share with me, so I kept it to myself. "Naturally, I'm just happy for you." La Gerta was on, the telephone speaking rapid fire Spanish when I came in. She glanced up at me without seeing me and looked away. But after a moment, her eyes came back to me. This time she looked me over thoroughly, frowned and said, okay. "Ta luego," which was Cuban for hasta luego. She hung up and continued to look at me. "What have you got for me?" She said finally. "Glad tidings," I told her. "If that means good news, I could use some." I hooked a folding chair with my foot and dragged it into her cubby. "There is no possible doubt," I said, sitting in the folding chair, "that you have the right guy in jail. The murder on Old Cutler was committed by a different hand." She just looked at me for a moment. I wondered if it took her that long to process the data and respond. "You can back that up?" she asked me at last. For sure, of course I could back it up for sure, but I wasn't going to, no matter how good confession might be for the soul. Instead, I dropped the folder onto her desk. "The facts speak for themselves," I said. "There's absolutely no question about it." And of course, there wasn't any question at all, as only I knew very well. "Look," I told her, and pulled out a page of carefully selected comparisons I had typed out. "First, this victim is male. All the others were female. This victim was found off Old Cutler. All of McHale's victims were off Tamiami Trail. This victim was found relatively intact and in the spot where he was killed. McHale's victims were completely chopped up, and they were moved to a different location for disposal." I went on, and she listened carefully. The list was a good one. It had taken me several hours to come up with the most obvious, ludicrous, transparently foolish comparisons. And I must say I did a very good job. And La Gerta did her part wonderfully too. She bought the whole thing, of course. She was hearing what she wanted to hear. "To sum up," I said, "this new murder has the fingerprint of a revenge killing, probably drug-related. The guy in jail did the other murders, and they are absolutely, positively, 100% finished and over forever. Never happen again. Case closed. I dropped the folder on her desk and held out my list. She took the paper from me and looked at it for a long moment. She frowned, her eyes moved up and down the page a few times. One corner of her lower lip twitched. Then she placed it carefully on her desk under a heavy jade green stapler. "Okay," she said, straightening the stapler so it was perfectly aligned with the edge of her blotter. "Okay, pretty good. This should help." She looked at me again with her frown of concentration still stitched in place, and then suddenly smiled. "Okay, thank you, Dexter." It was such an unexpected and genuine smile that if I only had a soul, I'm sure I would have felt quite guilty. She stood, still smiling, and before I could retreat, she had flung her arms around my neck to give me a hug. "I really do appreciate it," she said. "You make me feel very grateful." And she rubbed her body against mine in a way that could only be called suggestive. Surely there could be no question of here she was, a defender of public morality, and yet right here in public, and even in the privacy of a bank vault, I would have been truly uninterested in being rubbed by her body. Not to mention the fact that I had just handed her a rope with the hope that she would use it to hang herself, which hardly seemed like the sort of thing one would celebrate by. Well, really, had the whole world gone mad? What is it with humans? Is this all any of them ever thinks about? Feeling something very close to panic, I tried to disentangle myself. "Please, detective, call me Migdia," she said, clinging and rubbing harder. She reached a hand down to the front of my pants and I jumped. On the plus side, my action dislodged the amorous detective. On the negative side, she spun sideways, hit the desk with her hip, and tripped over her chair, landing sprawled out on the floor. I really have to get back to work," I stammered. "There's an important however, I couldn't think of anything more important than running for my life, so I backed out of the cubicle, leaving her looking after me. It didn't seem to be a particularly friendly look.